Many years ago, a fellow student of Rudy's named Tano Maeda created, among other things, a publication called Tricycle, which presents, at least for me, every day online, little aphorisms that one can start the day with, perhaps use to live by. And and I see them every day. And I'm sort of grateful to Tano for having done it. He also created the International Buddhist Film Festival, so he's a very active participant in the world of spreading the gospel, if you will. And truly, he and his wife Ayelet are people I love very much. But I look at the aphorism in the morning and I go, okay, delete. And I keep waiting for the one that will change my life or give me the absolute insight that I need for the day ahead. And they all tread on that line, but they're all about ways to do stuff that will maybe fix and repair or open and accept. And, they're all instruction to the brain and the mind and the psyche of each of us to do something to make ourselves more in alignment, to make ourselves more accepted by the larger universe, to find our path through the world that we're all caught up in. And and I keep waiting for the one that snaps me into place. And uh, it rarely occurs. But one that happened was on the cruise with 7,000 people in whom I sat in terrible judgment and really wondered about the world we were all living in. And one of the ones that came up was kind of interesting. It basically said, "You are this. This is you." And I looked at those 7,000 people and I went, "Really? Really? I'm part of that?" And it was disheartening, but it was the beginning of something that's occurring in my own life. And I've referenced it a bit, which is my eyes are now opening a little bit more every day. And I don't like what I'm seeing exactly, but it's clearer vision than I've ever had. And it's about the universe or the world that we inhabit and the life we live. And I don't have the protection and the quietude of my home in the country, my separation from all of the noise. I am suddenly one with the totality of everything. Not that I ever imagined that I wasn't, but there is a level of seeing, and perhaps you might even call it feeling, that starts to strip away all of the protective gear. And you're just a raw participant in this very dynamic, very exciting, painful, beautiful, terrifying reality. You just are. And so there's the spiritual drive to figure out, what do I do with all this, which basically means, how do I get through it? How do I protect myself? How do I start to feel safe and secure in a world where there is no safety and no security? How do I do it? And the answer is, in some very human way, you can't. There's nothing you can do that will make you safe and secure. For one particular reason, you're doomed. Sorry, but you are, every one of you, and I'm on that same page, of course, we're all heading to the same outcome, which is the loss of everything that is, and probably some pain and suffering along the way, and an unknown greeting us. We may project the knowability as a factor that we can tell us where we're going and feel, we lived a good life, we'll go to a good heaven space, or we'll go to a space of, of uh, non-materialized reality, whatever your mind is telling you and feeding you as a way of comforting you in this ride. But I am having a harder and harder time trying to make comfort for Bruce, because I am so exposed and so stripped naked in a way in this world of day-to-day life. Now, look, I'm lucky. I don't sit outside in the freezing cold. My house hasn't burned down. I will tell you, it's much easier to meditate and have a joyful, simple, quiet life when you have air conditioning or heat that works, and windows and ceilings and all those things that give you comfort. Take that away, your house burns down and you're trapped inside. Your meditative experience changes dramatically. Whether you can amp up enough to work through that, maybe we'll find out probably in our own particular way. But what's the real guidance here? What's the what's the way to move through your life, and what are we looking for to take us through it? And I've been really intrigued for myself. This has been post Christmas cruise. The universe is actively putting in front of me stuff every day, kind of every moment, to stare at and learn from and look at in some kind of very vulnerable way. It's not an easy teaching, but it is speaking to me. Uh, Part of it, I think I've described to you guys, is I'm part of the Oscar nominating committee for the Academy Awards. And so I take that seriously, and I watch all the movies, and I've expressed that in some of these movies. I'd say right now, every one of these movies is just plowing through my brain and affecting me in unbelievable ways. I also have one of my oldest friends in the world, Larry White, has just finished a book that he asked me to read. And it's essentially about the world 80 years from now, post climate change catastrophe, post Trumpian reality. I mean, it is the most disturbing story. And so I sit with that every day as I read, trying to be a friend and at the same time a help and maybe a judge, which he kind of does not want. But on the other hand, he's asked me to read his book. So I'm looking at the world as we might all start to begin to experience it, and it ain't pretty. And then I'm watching these movies about catastrophes in the past and coming. But one film that I saw, and again, interesting how the universe presents these, is a film by Werner Herzog in the international film section called A Perfect Day. Interesting film. Uh, it's about a Japanese man who wakes up in the morning, and his mattress is a little flat thing on the floor that he rolls up, a blanket that he folds up, and a pillow. And he folds them in perfect order and places them in the corner of the room. He brushes his teeth. He prepares for his day. And then you discover that he is a toilet cleaner. That is his job. He cleans toilets I can't tell what city it is. It could be Tokyo. And he gets in a car that clearly belongs to the corporation that he works for, because most of the time he'll go riding on a bicycle. But he gets in the car and he goes from one toilet to another and cleans them. Often he has to step outside because somebody has to rush in for reasons we all understand. And he sits out there very quietly. And then they're done, and he goes back in and he scrubs the toilets and he cleans the floor and he washes everything. He folds the toilet paper so it has that little triangle. And he does this, and then the movie cuts to the next day, and he does exactly the same thing. And you're going as a viewer, oh my God, where's the story here? And you watch him go through the exact same thing the next day. And you go, there's a part of me that goes, I'm not sure I want to be here, but I like this guy. And he really does a good job cleaning toilets. Like, he really cares. And some of the toilets are in very interesting places. One of them has this amazing glass enclosure where you can see the toilet, but when you go in and you push a button, the windows just cloud up. And there are three of them in different colors, and it's like really beautiful. And he does this again, goes to bed, gets up the next morning. You kind of get an idea where this goes. There are a few things that happen a guy who works with him and then quits and makes him work twice as hard for the day that he has to do twice as many toilets. A young girl who appears in his life and you discover he knows her. I'm not going to give you the whole story and tell you where it goes, but she brings up certain things in his life to help you understand some of his past, which is painful. You don't know why it's painful, but it is. And he somehow goes, okay. And then he keeps working and cleaning toilets. My friend Ann said to me yesterday, it's kind of the Japanese version of chop wood, carry water. He just does this. He also has these cassettes that he plays in his car, mostly of early American 1960s and 70s rock and roll. And he just listens to her, Joni Mitchell type stuff. He just listens to this and he smiles and he drives. And occasionally he'll go to a restaurant where they know him and this food is almost ready for him. He hardly has to talk at all. I'm being very deliberate in trying to give you a picture of this because nothing happens. Little tiny revelations happen, but nothing happens. The end, the end of the film is back in his car, putting on a cassette, which he finds through one of his friends, one of these people that are probably worth, because they're antique, $150, but he doesn't care. He listens to his cassette and he drives off. Nothing happens. It's day to day sameness. And yet there is no dwelling in the suffering. It's there. There are doorways to it, but he just likes cleaning the toilet. It's as low an occupation, I suppose, as a human being can have. And you watch him and you go, my life is not cleaning toilets. It might actually be improved if I were to clean more toilets. But I realize the unbelievable simplicity that can be at the core of the human journey. And he's not trying to get anywhere. He's not trying to get anything. He's just being. And his doing and his being are contiguous, so that he's not trying to do to get, or maybe he is, but there's no implication that his cleaning toilets is his way to happiness. It's just what he does. And I look at that as a sign from the whatever it is that feeds into a life, as a wake up, smell the roses kind of moment. And it's been really impactful. I have to say, I've been seeing since that a lot of short films, and they do depict a world of unbelievable sadness and suffering, but they also depict people helping people, doing things, tiny things that change their whole arena of living. They just, this one film which is nominated for Best Documentary is just about people repairing instruments for California students. It's an organization that exists and that's all it does. And every person who does the repairs has a story. And then there are all these kids who would not have instruments if California didn't provide them free. And then you start to see these kids, one playing, two in orchestras, and three, the people who are fixing their instruments, realizing the joy that they are bringing to other people with this very simple, very day-to-day operation of working. I bring all this to the table because, I mean, one, I'd love you to see these movies. Some of them are really lovely. Some of them are truly desperately disturbing because life is both simple and in some ways beautiful, and in other ways, and we're being shown this now on mass media and newspapers, it's horrifying. And I am getting emails and letters and phone calls from people, students and others, who are deeply activated by the drama of what's going on around us, deeply charged by the fear and not knowing what to do, and saying in capital letters, I need to do something. And like, I'm going to give them the answer. I have no answer. The clearest answer I'm being given right now is clean the toilet. Just clean the toilet. It takes away from chop wood, carry water, which has a kind of allure to it. It's just day to day. And there are really amazing moments that come in your simple day to day. And there are horrifying moments that come in the day to day of human life. And you may want one and not the other. But the thing that you might want to learn from all this, and it comes from Rudy, is when it gets really hard, you work harder. When stuff comes at you that's much more explosive and difficult, you have to do deeper work, which means take a breath, ask for help to quietly clean the toilet. That's what you're really asking for. You're not trying to ask for free me and get me out of here, because that isn't the response that you're probably going to get until maybe the last millisecond of your life. What you're going to get is the directive of take a breath and go back to the work that's in front of you, period. And if there's nothing in front of you, and I go through that on occasion, put something in front of you. Put something in front of you. You know, I have luckily come across years ago now photography. And one of the things that's important is getting up and, you know, if I see something and I don't know why life brings me things to see, take a picture. And then sometimes I play with the photographs and they get more intriguing, even maybe more beautiful than they even started out. And I go, wow, that that's very completing. My mom did the same thing. She became a painter at the end of her life. Not that any gallery would ever show her work, but she felt so good having one of her works finished. And I've understood now through the help of my therapist. I believe you know I see a therapist for the last 20 years, someone who basically suffers through my monologues now. Uh, but she did have something wonderful to say. She said, get in your car and go somewhere and take pictures. And I went, well, you know, it's snowy and rainy and gray, but yes, I can do that. And I was on my agenda for yesterday, but the strangest thing happened. I got up and everywhere I looked was a photograph. My hallway going into the bathroom was like, oh, that's gorgeous, you know? And then I looked down at my little feet on the ground below me and I just went, snap. And I took a picture of my feet. And then I decided to take pictures of myself, this old aging face. And oh my God, when you see these pictures, I mean, whatever you're seeing right now is nothing like what I look like in the morning. Not that anything has happened, but the wrinkles are right there and the aging is right there. And, you know, there's just, I don't have any, you know, I don't care about it, but I wanted to document it. And so I just sat there and documented it. I shot 145 pictures yesterday of I don't know what. I have no idea what. And along with reading my friend's book and also talking to a few people on the phone. And it was a beautiful day, a beautiful day. And then there was this moment where Blanche and I had a concert to go to tomorrow night, and tomorrow night, last night. And both of us at around 5 o'clock said, we don't really want to go. There's a real wonderful concert at Bard University where we go. We saw, you know, we have season tickets. I called my son Josh and said, do you want to go? And he said, I don't even know if he went, but he basically said he would consider it. And we stayed home. We made a choice to not do something rather than to do something. There's real value in that. There's just value in that. You have choice. You can control this, go this way, go this way. Do, don't do. Own it. Just own it. And we gave up, you know, tickets we had and all of that, but it saved us from a ride out in very cold weather and parking lots that are very far from the place where you actually see the show. So there's a lot of walking through really cold weather, and we didn't want to go through that. You can choose that. You can choose to go no, and you can choose to go yes. You have this amazing ability to stop and find direction, find a way to reconceptualize your day, who you are, what you're going to do with it. And if nothing else comes up, clean the toilet. Just go clean the toilet. And I mean that literally. You know, this guy on the movie spent the whole day cleaning toilets all over the city and loved the ride from one toilet to the other, loved the music that he played on his cassettes from one toilet to another, got to meet all these strange people. He would sit in the park and have lunch, and these people he never spoke to who would look at him and he would look at them. But he had something happening. He had something going on. And I have to tell you, you know, our lives are what we've got. They're what we have. Trying to make them liberated, free, to give yourself total enlightenment. I can only tell you there is uh, there is an what it seems like to me a rising energy, a growing clarity, a kind of awareness, a kind of depth of being that does happen in a life that's spiritually directed. But does it free you from being human? No, no. You do not sit around like, I have it all and you got nothing, or you don't. Or if you join my club, you can be with my purity of being. I mean, look, I've said this probably 100 times before, but if there are people like that, and you may have signed on to the clubs and groups like that, okay, go for it. But where are you in the middle of that? And what happens when they don't sign on or they're not available or you're failing in that world and you're feeling like you're no good and all that? What then? What happens when you're a failure? Clean the toilet. Clean the toilet. That's all you got to do. Clean the toilet. Or in Rudy's word, take a breath. Take a breath. Go, okay, right now I'm a failure. Tomorrow I will not be a failure. Tomorrow I will be whatever tomorrow is. And you find the being in the world, the day-to-day being, finding the cassette you want to listen to, or the silence that you want to listen to, or learning to enjoy the rain, or look at the birds, or whatever it is that's there for you. This is not an unintelligent path to, to being a person on a spiritual path. Spiritual path does not mean arrival as much as it means present tense. You don't arrive in any way in a future zone. You arrive, if there's such a thing of arriving, you just go, oh, and you're there. You're cleaning the toilet. What an amazing thing to be there, to just be there. And you tell me one of you who's not there. One of you. There's none of you who's not there. Not for a second. You are so there, and it's sometimes unbelievably joyous and beautiful, and just as many times horrible and unpleasant and difficult and painful. That's called there. That's called there. Clean the toilet. It's not a positive message, perhaps, and it's not very uplifting, and it's not promising in terms of, I'll have pleasure over pain, but you will have something of finding the right cassette, cleaning the toilet and seeing it look clean when it was dirty. And you'll have this idea that moment to moment after you make the bed, which, Rudy said, it's one of his first teachings to me, spiritual life starts with making your bed in the morning. This Japanese guy in this movie made his bed in the morning. It was simpler than my bed on some level, but he had it, and we all have it, and we're all there. And life, I think, is going to get more demanding and more difficult. Rivers of rain through California and God knows what else going on. The world is getting to be so disruptive, as it does periodically and maybe rhythmically. You know, it just has these cycles. We are in a particular cycle. Our parents lived in possibly cycles like these. We are part of what it means to be human and alive. We are here. We are in this, and you can try to figure out what you can, if you can, how to get out of it. But until you are gone, you're not out of it. You're just in it. You may live on the periphery. You may live at the very core of what's going on in the world. And projections may not be as pretty as you would like, but there's always something in front of you that can be done that will make life uh, doable, literally doable, rather than beingable. Just do. And let that doing become part of your being, and let that cohesion between the two start to give you some sense of the word I've used a lot in the past of okay. Okay. Let that be your guidepost. It doesn't have to be celebratory, and it doesn't have to be deep suffering. It's just a kind of amazing, maybe I shouldn't use adjectives. It's just okay. clean the toilet. So that's my message for today. I don't know if it's inspiring. I don't know how many toilets you want to clean in your life, but you know, it hit me, and so I'm talking to you about what's hitting me. And if it speaks to you, great. If it doesn't speak to you, sign off. Any questions about toilet cleaning? Okay, TJ,
Bruce, great talk. It reminded me of a quote. I'm not sure the
can you
origin.
talk louder? I'm having trouble hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It reminds me of a quote. I'm not sure the origin of it. It was, "Whatever you are, be that. It's hard to get it wrong."
I like that. Thank you. Thank you. Good one. Yeah, it is hard to get it wrong. Although, the closest we come to getting things wrong is resisting the what is. That I mean, there's humanity in that. There's reality in that. There's an understandable quality of being and getting it wrong. But you know, it's hard. It's harder when you walk around announcing wrongness to yourself. Anybody else? Yeah, Zach.
Well, Bruce, I like that you're kind of taking the nostalgic romanticism out of the chop wood, carry water. Because so right now I'm working at like a dine-in movie theater while I'm at school, and there's the busters who just go and they clean the theaters. And it's funny because I'm almost like envious of them, like, oh, they get to just clean the theaters. They don't have to talk to all these people. But I couldn't like, they don't make as much and all that kind of stuff. So I'm I guess working on taking that simplicity and bringing it into the complexity, you know, like in order for me to actually be able to pay for everything and to do all the stuff that I need to, it's like, okay, well, like my toilet is like a complex toilet, but then finding the simplicity in the complicated toilet, it's a bidet or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, no, and you can see with this guy, there were things that were broken and not working, and plungers that didn't work, and I mean all these things that didn't weren't functioning, he had to fix. So he had moments of complexity as well, and we get that. We all get that. And Blanche has been working on all these little things that are breaking around in her life right now. The tooth thing that you when you the tooth thing when you use it for your teeth, whatever she had to fix it, and batteries for a flashlight that fell out, and it was not regular batteries. It was like these strange little tiny batteries all together, and it's like suddenly the minutia of your life is like totally perplexing. What is this about? Why is this? And then your job is to fix the thing that's in front of you, or go get something else. But it dictates the flow of your life. Rather than sit and get angry at that dictation, you just go, oh, clean the toilet. And it really is important. And we all need to find our way into that, even in the most difficult times where the world is going through crazy upheaval. You still have things to repair and do and function with, you know. And my dear friend Mark has a word for how he survives, which I think is really interesting. It's a Jewish word, and he calls it pachkiing. Pachkiing is a Jewish word. It just means doing stuff, just doing stuff, going, getting it's I repair would be one way to do it, but to prepare your meal for the dinner that night, and get, pots that you haven't cleaned properly, get them cleaner. He's potchking, but he fills days with potchking. And I go, that's the title of a book. I don't know if I want to write it, but potchking is a really interesting Jewish term for just doing stuff to fill your day. It's not as clean and directive as cleaning toilets, but it is how many of us survive. We have just little things to do them. So, yes. Brenda?
Oh, I just wanted to say that I once had the opportunity of cleaning toilets in one of the most elegant places you can imagine, like the Cipriani's on 42nd Street. It was just like a one night gig, but I just remember how much I enjoyed that evening.
Well, you're reminding me, and I've forgotten this. Rick Schneider, you may remember it. I don't know, but we went to Ann Arbor once to clean dorms. dorm rooms to help the ashram clean dorm rooms because it got them some money. And one of the things we had to do in the dorm rooms was clean all the toilets. So the Bloomington ashram went to Ann Arbor and did exactly that. And this is interesting, whatever maybe it's too interesting. The very night, oh, this is too weird a story. We cleaned the toilets and I had zero resistance, zero. I just cleaned toilets. We had a meditation class after cleaning the toilets, and I'm sitting there in the class in the Ann Arbor ashram. And you may have all heard this story, but I feel something from far out in outer space zooming toward me. And I'm going, what? It was too weird. It was like Superman in a capsule, but going through space, and he's coming right toward me. And then suddenly it goes right in the top of my head in the uppermost chakra. It goes right down into my balls, basically the lowest chakra. And a voice comes in my head and said, give this to your wife tonight. I went, what? What? We had been trying to have another child for 8 years. 8 years. We made love that night. I said, Blanche, you're not going to believe this story. And she looked at me and went, but who cares? You know, we made love. We had our second son. So I'm not saying that cleaning toilets and going into this enormous sort of awareness and then this kind of gift that was given, but, you know, create your narratives here. It's an interesting alignment. George.
I just remember something Rudy once said as a metaphor. He said, you know, it takes 2 minutes to take the garbage out, but we can all putz around for an hour trying to figure out how not to do it when we have to do it anyway. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, you probably remember this, George, but I mean, ultimately taking the garbage out from Rudy's classroom was one of the highest gifts you could be given, because you got to be the one who took out everybody's garbage. And I remember almost like fighting over the garbage to take it out of the house because it had symbolic value. It had real nature. And, you know, it was like the lowest of the jobs that people ignore proved to be the ones that were really essential. The essential stuff you have to do in your life. So for me, it's very good. Everything, I mean, Rudy taught and taught and taught on so many levels, but that's a great one. Have we done it? Anybody else? I'm not, I have, oh, okay. Shelley.
There's something, I'm not quite sure how to say this, but, and maybe it's just the Hollywood story ending, but usually there's adversity and then we overcome it and then we feel good. And part of what I feel you're saying, not about the toilets, but the other part, like there is real problems and they don't seem solvable. And why are we here when we're not going to conquer them? Like what?
I think about that all the time. And here's if you want one person's opinion of another person's opinion. This world is in my brain, in my narrative, is like a school, because everything seems to go to graduation from first grade to second grade to third to fourth to college to doctorates and all of these things, to learning more, getting more degrees, to going up a ladder of sorts into greater knowledge and greater awareness. And there seems to be some kind of ascension, uplift, which is a really important part of life. And it's all done with going against adversity. So you have a real problem with mathematics, you get a tutor, you get your mom and dad, they come, they work, and then suddenly you have an A on an exam that you would never have had an A on. That is something really celebratory in human life. And we celebrate these steps going up the ladder in the world that we live in. Is this world the totality of being? Well, if that's the case, the resolution of all stories is happening at death and we don't see it. So it's not satisfying. You know, we don't know the answer. We create ideas of what it is, but what we get are momentary uplifts and successes in the journey. And it may be, I mean, you know, you can look at the Buddhist iconographies and ideas of, you know, many lifetimes and karma carrying you in different ways. And you can try to imagine that's the story, but it's just us telling a story. On the other hand, there is real pleasure in getting the toilet clean. There really is. There's real pleasure in achievement. There's real pleasure in meeting the person who you're supposed to spend your life with. You know, there are these unbelievable great things that happen in human life. They're not final, and they don't have the resolution of a movie, which, you know, gives you closure and completion and makes you feel good all over. That doesn't happen. But moment to moment, there are there are sections of life where you go, that's what it feels like. It feels great. And then adversity happens, you know? So it keeps on going, it keeps on unfolding, and it's without resolution. But what I understand, because I teach this class and I watch people going through these ups and downs, if you want to call them, but mostly because everyone who's committed to this kind of practice is having a kind of rising energy that gets obstructed and freed, obstructed and freed, obstructed and freed. And my job seems to be to go into the obstruction, because I'm taught, I don't know how to do it, but they just say, go in here and do this, do that. And I see it and it goes, and somebody has a clearer path up. That's all I know. I don't get any rewards internally for that. They don't go, great job. Just like the hose, you know, with the water doesn't say great job for watering the plants. It just waters the plants. This is a thing of rising energy being made able to rise and rise, not to the point of, oh yeah, I get it. Although I think some people feel they have gotten it, and maybe they have. I'm not going to argue for them. I've thought on many occasions that oh, now I get it. I have it. You know, I really thought I was, you know, enlightened and awakened at any number of times along the way. But then there's bigger seeing, there's bigger knowing. And I go, oh, okay. And so there's a humility that comes along with this human journey that's really amazing. But adversity is absolutely built in, and so is transcendence, or dealing with adversity and overcoming it and growing as a human being. Rudy used the word growth all the time, because that is really the human journey. And the world we're in, if you look anywhere, you look at the trees, you look at the plants, you look at everything going on around you, it's about growth, growing in some way or another, and dying. But somehow the journey of growing maintains a kind of constancy in the human universe, and the experience of dying is something falling away. What survives the growing? I don't know, maybe just knowing that the experience of growing, or the experience of adversity and not growing, and struggle and pain and all the other stuff, you know. But the fact is, this is the human realm. I see most people, especially on the cruise, totally horizontally involved in struggle and adversity, and give me and distract me and do all the stuff you can so I don't have to feel anything except pleasure of eating and buying stuff. And then I see people who rise out of that. And the rising energy to me is celebratory. And everybody who, in a good story, in a good Hollywood movie, who breaks out of adversity to a higher level of knowing and insight, is in our psyche so celebrated, so satisfying, so important. But at the end of a Hollywood movie, it goes to the end. But there's nothing like that in day-to-day life except the end, you know. But that's, you know, and that ain't, it's not fun. That end isn't fun usually. Very few people, I think, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but very few people have an end that has a Hollywood quality to it. It's usually just, so you better have your finalities and your joyfulness, your celebrations along the way. And you can have them literally every day by just reaching out to people you love, hugging someone you love, feeling a particular openness occur, having a bite of an apple that's like amazing. Or for me, my peanut butter and jelly in the morning is like, oh my God, I could just be born for that. You know, nothing is, that moment in the morning where I put peanut butter and a raspberry jam on piece of it's called Ezekiel bread. I take my first bite. I even lick it off the knife. I'm literally in heaven for about 30 seconds. And it doesn't get better. And it's enough. It's enough. My whole day gets set up by that. Whole day. So all I can say is, if we're smart, we look, we watch, we embrace what comes. We try not to run the other way when it's getting hard. We ask for help if we need it. There's these forces inside us that open up and offer help, which is kind of amazing. It's tiny, but it's amazing. You hold someone's hand and you go, oh, it helps. You hold their hand in your mind. Try holding hands with someone in your mind. It's just as effective, honestly, as holding a physical hand, because you've learned from the physical how to turn that into the imagined, if you will, or the emotional, or the just the, I don't know what the word is, but it's not physical. It just works. It just works. So we are all here hugging each other. I can hug any one of you without you being on the screen here, without you having to be in my physical presence. And I do during the day. I don't know if any of you ever feel it. I just go like that. I just hug you because you're wonderful beings to love. You're just such wonderful beings to care about, And there are many people who listen to these talks. This is really interesting, who I don't know, who I've never met, and who just recently, for reasons I don't understand, have started writing me and saying thank you. That I've, changed their lives. I don't know these people at all, but I can feel their reaching out, and then my reaching out to the abstraction of whoever they are is so beautiful. And that's a life. That's kind of like cleaning toilets, but it's a different level. But it's the same idea. Send out the love, hug the people you care about. And there's nobody on this screen in front of me who I don't just who doesn't bring me joy. That's all I can tell you. You're all producers of joy, every one of you. So, and even the ones who I don't see and don't know, or who aren't on the screen now, boy, oh boy, this flow is like, it's something I don't get. I don't understand it. I have no idea how or why it happens, but it happens. And love can go out into the abstractions of the world and the concretized reality of people we know, and feed and nurture and help. We can all do that. And I find that to be one of the great ways that I wash and clean the toilet. It feels like an ending, no? Anybody else? Oh, good. Okay. Thank you. Next week, I'll see people here in person, and I'll see those of you on the screen. Bye, guys.